Hello and welcome to Brain Soup, a channel where I talk about whatever may be simmering away in my neurodivergent little mind. If you're new here, hi, I'm Paula. It's great to meet you. Otherwise, welcome back. I'm so pleased that you came by. I found out I have ADHD at 39 years old, and I post videos about neurodiversity from the perspective of a late diagnosed adult. If that sounds interesting to you, please stick around. And if you'd like to send some extra kindness my way, go ahead and do all those lovely content engagement things that make the YouTube algorithm happy. How is it that I got all the way to age 39 before getting diagnosed with ADHD? Well, a large part of that is because I'm smart. Cognitive testing scores in my psychological assessment ranged from high average to well above average in their little statistical bell curve doohickey. There's a term called twice exceptional that describes the coexistence of being gifted in some way and having a neurological condition that impairs your cognitive functions in some way. And because I have a mostly internal presentation of my ADHD symptoms, my struggles pretty much just flew under the radar. Daydreaming in class? Well, she understands the material already and just has an active imagination. Better that she's off in her own head than disrupting the other students. Called on to answer a question when I wasn't tuned into the conversation? Well, I could usually look at the board and figure things out fast enough to answer without making it obvious that I hadn't been paying attention. Putting off a large assignment or work project till the very last minute? Well, no problem, it was still done in time. More recently, talking more than my fair share during meetings or training sessions that have pauses for audience participation. Wow, what an actively engaged employee. How great. No, the other people had 3 whole entire seconds to start talking. Any longer than that, and my idle fantasy of chucking my laptop out the window out of boredom is going to become a career-ending reality. So that's why no one, including myself, ever noticed I have ADHD. But how did I actually cope with my symptoms before I was diagnosed? Basically, I would figure something out that worked for me, or was better than nothing at least, and then just get on with my day. And it turns out I'm not alone in that. A 2017 study investigated how adult patients with ADHD coped with their symptoms prior to diagnosis and treatment, what skills and compensation strategies they developed, and what their self-perceptions of those strategies are. The results of the study found that people tended to develop skills or workarounds around 5 different themes. I'm going to talk about my own experience with the first 4. I can't stand the feeling of not being in control of myself in any way, so I was either never interested at all or too scared of the consequences of possible addiction to ever try going the psychopharmacological route. Social skills are often impaired in people with ADHD due to inattention or interrupting in conversations, or it could be due to forgetting commitments or birthdays or other important details. If I had somewhere to be at a certain time to meet somebody, I would always aim to be at least a little bit early. And then as for avoiding commitments, that hits a little close to home. I like to be helpful, and I've volunteered for a few things over the years, but over time, I backed out more and more because upholding my commitments took bandwidth away from other areas in my life. And for the sorts of commitments that are important to make and keep friends, well, that'll be its own video another time. I'll just leave it at that for today. Now, organizational skills are heavily impacted by ADHD because they rely on executive functioning, which is impaired by ADHD. Anyone making it to adulthood before receiving an ADHD diagnosis has at least some form of workaround in place. I would try out different planners, bring them home from the store with bright eyed enthusiasm as if they were some kind of magic scroll. They'd usually work for a while, but if I slipped up and didn't use them even once, it was like the spell work just kind of fizzled away. And that planner would join its other used up predecessors in a corner somewhere. I use to do lists sometimes, but sometimes I lose that scrap of paper. And once smartphones became a thing, I tell you, a calendar app with reminders, multiple reminders, is a total game changer. Also, having set predictable routines takes away the cognitive load of managing tasks. So when I can do some everyday thing on autopilot, that frees up a lot of brain power to think about other things and maybe plan or organize or stay on track. Stimulus restriction, aka eliminating distractions in my environment, that's a bit of a double-edged sword. A lot of the time, this can help because distractions aren't interrupting my flow. But if I'm working on something particularly tedious, my own thoughts start racing away out of boredom, and that becomes its own distraction. And there's nothing around to shift my focus to stop them. Now that I'm on medication, I can at least notice when that starts happening a lot sooner and take a little mindfulness moment to course correct. But pre-diagnosis, an understimulating environment could be just as bad as an overstimulating one. Motor strategies. Now, regular exercise is a big help to a lot of people with ADHD, myself included. Though, like with the planners, it's pretty easy to get off track. Also, fidgeting. Fidgeting is a motor stim, which is short for self-stimulatory behavior. For people with ADHD or autism or both, stims are used to keep us regulated, to redirect focus away from internal or environmental overstimulation, or to help process or even externalize our emotions. A motor stim can be a movement like rocking, spinning, tapping your foot. Mine tend to be tapping or snapping my fingers, shaking or playing with my hands, feeling my hair, and swaying side to side. Stims can focus on our other senses as well, but I'll expand on that another time. Now, for those of you who might be thinking, but those are things that all humans do. Well, you're right. But for those of us with undiagnosed ADHD that are getting by, think of it like driving a car, which is another pretty common experience. So for social strategies, punctuality, a neurotypical person generally allows for a fairly reasonable travel time and just takes whatever route makes the most sense. But those of us with ADHD might leave extra early because it's been our experience that we're going to hit every red light and train crossing along the way. And we also might go out of our way to detour around where we know might be more difficult driving scenarios like roundabouts or multi-lane four-way stops. And for an organizational strategy, it's, a pretty universal experience that a journey is easier with some kind of navigation aid, where a neurotypical person has the ability to just punch an address into a sat nav system and get talked through their route as they go. Someone with ADHD is using a gas station map. They have to mark it up with how they're going to get where they're going before they even start. Then find a safe space to stop along the way so they can pull it back out, figure out how to unfold it without accidentally ripping it, figure out where they are, find that spot along the route, or figure out how to get back to the route if they got off track, see where the next safe stopping spot's going to be, get it more or less folded back into shape, and drive on while remembering where to go next. Oh, and sometimes we're already on our way before we realize that the map's on the kitchen table back home. For attentional strategies in our driving metaphor, we all know distracted driving is extremely dangerous. Neurotypical people just keep that in mind and go about their business, tuning out any input that's not necessary for driving. An ADHD person might need to keep their phone in the glove box or the back seat, and never drive at night to avoid the glare of oncoming headlights, and avoid areas with lots of bright signs and interesting architecture. And for motor strategies, well, here we have the physical movements required to drive your car. A neurotypical person might tap their fingers on the steering wheel or bop their head to their favorite jam on the radio while they're cruising along with an automatic transmission. An ADHDer might tap and bop too, but they also need to take a hand off the wheel to operate the stick shift and use both feet to operate the clutch as well as the gas and brake. And the ABS is broken, so they have to drum their foot to pump the brakes. So you can see we're all just getting from point A to point B. It's just someone with undiagnosed ADHD might be limited for where and when they can do things, and is probably wondering why most other people say driving is just easy. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk soon.